This is Dates and Mates with your host, Damona Hoffman.
Hey, lovers, welcome to Dates and Mates. This is the place where we're going to make modern love simple for you. I feel like it's getting more complicated, Producer Thomas.
Modern love?
Modern love.
Well, we're here to help out the people any way we can.
Wow, what a positive way of looking at things. I hope to spread a little bit more positivity today. I'm going to start actually with an inspiring, not a quote, an inspiring message.
Yes.
Thank you. I have a message to deliver
Times
to
are
you.
tough. We need all the inspo we can get.
Inspo. That's a good one. Hashtag inspo
exactly.
coming at you a little bit later. But we also have headlines. Headlines are happening today. Oh, that's another one. The headlines are happening. We have to talk about Facebook launching this new dating feature. I'm so excited that they did it the day before our show because we had to talk about it, and I couldn't wait a whole week to discuss.
Right, yeah.
So this is
hot off the presses.
Hot off the presses, interesting news, and I'm going to share with you how it relates to you in your dating life today. Plus, we will discuss a study on the lies people tell on dating apps while they're messaging. Not the profile lies, the message lies. This was a fascinating article. I'll digest that with you in just a minute. And also, a former Hollywood couple is reigniting the flame, we think. I'll tell you who it is and what's the latest and greatest. And we have your thought-provoking questions in Technically Dating. We'll examine what to do if you are interested in dating your neighbor and how to let your boyfriend know that you are bi. I feel like bi is sort of making a comeback. For a while, people were like, I don't want to put a label on this. I'm just me, and whoever I'm attracted to, it's just who I am, and just I don't want to put a label on it.
Hey, as we always say, it's 2018.
It's 2018, but I feel like as I'm watching the Techspert questions, there's been a resurgence of bisexuality and using that label.
Well, it's good that people are comfortable enough to say who they are inside.
Definitions, I think, actually do have value. But I'll tell you a little bit more about my feelings on that in today's segment because, I mean, you only need to look at the news for a minute to see the world is in crisis, just as producer Thomas just said. So I want to lift all of your spirits. And from now on, I'm going to aim to start the show with some inspiring thoughts. So this one was sort of generated by me listening to one of my favorite podcasters, Chalene Johnson. And she can go for half an hour, just herself and the mic, and sharing wisdom and strategies and ways to live your best life. So I've really been inspired by her. Thank you so much, Chalene. And today I want to talk to you all about vulnerability. And vulnerability is really important in dating and relationships because you have to be willing to open yourself up without getting attached to the outcome. You have to be willing to be imperfect and stand in that space of awkwardness and openness and be open to whatever comes out of it. And there's a practice that I've done for a while, but it was really solidified for me by reading Rising Strong by Brené Brown. And trust me, I will give full credit where credit is due. Brené Brown has dedicated her entire life and the studies that she does to exploring vulnerability. So if you don't know her, pop up a little TED Talk on her, maybe get yourself a copy of Rising Strong. But this is something that I've done, and she kind of put it into a real practice. And it's about owning what's weird and owning your own belief system, however crazy and strange and misguided it is. Those thoughts that are happening in your head, sometimes when you say them aloud and you connect them to another person, you realize that your perspective of what's happening and the reality of what actually occurred or what that person intended can be two completely different things. So the way that Brené does it is she says, the story I'm telling myself is, and it's whatever makes you really feel vulnerable about the situation. So if we were expecting to acknowledge you and they ignored you, it's the story I'm telling myself is, you didn't acknowledge me because you think that I'm insignificant, or because I feel insignificant, or because I'm not good enough for you. And when you can really voice that thing that's really standing in your way of that connection with the other person, then you can close the feedback loop, and those thoughts just don't keep bouncing around in your head, getting bigger and bigger and more daunting and more daunting. You voice it, and then you can actually hear what the other person intended and where it's coming from. So maybe if the story that I'm telling myself isn't the right framework for you, maybe you can even start by saying, when you say that, it makes me think or feel this. Even if you didn't intend this, I'm hearing this. And then pause and let that person speak and fill in the space that you've been filling in with your own anxiety. And really, I encourage you to practice vulnerability, not just in speaking your truth, but in also exploring the things that make you feel sort of scared. Over the weekend, I was asked to share a poem at an event. And I had been through this experience before, and it was a conference where there were new people that were having this experience for the first time. And I felt like I really was the person, having gone through it, who knew what they were thinking and feeling right then. And yet, I started looking outward, and I thought, I have to find the perfect poem. And I read poem after poem after poem. And I thought, well, I'm not a poet. I haven't been christened with the mark of poetry, so I can't actually write or speak a poem aloud. I'll have to find someone else's words that are close enough and take them on as my own. And the more that I looked through this poetry, the more that I realized that these poems were imperfect because they were not intended for that purpose. And if I could find my own voice, and if I could write a poem that really captured what I was feeling in that moment and what those people would be experiencing at that time, that would really resonate on a deeper level. And I was scared. I was so scared, you guys, because to put my work out there, my writing, my inner thoughts and feelings was super vulnerable, but I did it. And ultimately, I wrote a poem that came from the heart. I spoke the poem, and the response was overwhelming and completely surprising to me. I had people that came up afterwards that thought that I had pulled the poem from some major poetry book, that didn't even realize that this was my own poem, and that said, this was just so perfect for this experience, and thank you for the poem. I even had someone ask for a copy of the poem who wants to read it somewhere else and pass those words on. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you can find it in your heart to be vulnerable and to do that thing that scares the crap out of you, the fulfillment you will get from that breakthrough is so much greater than the fear. I'll say that one more time. The fulfillment that you will get is greater than the fear. So I encourage you to go out into the world, be vulnerable, speak your truth, and see what comes back. And I'd love to hear what comes out of this for you if you try this exercise, or if you just make next week about being vulnerable. Please email me your thoughts and your experiences, or leave us a review on iTunes. But you can email me, damona@damonahoffman.com. And please, please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message and could use a little bit more vulnerability in your life. And now, my friends, the headlines.
Dee's Dating Dish.
Facebook is launching a new dating feature. This has been a long time coming, Producer Thomas.
Indeed it has.
And now what they're saying is, after years of integrating Facebook into other dating sites and dating apps, they're like, wait a minute. Why
don't we just do it ourselves?
Why don't we just do it ourselves? Which is kind of a good idea and kind of a bad idea at the same time, because let's not forget that Facebook is coming off of a very vulnerable time themselves.
They're a bit of the persona non grata these days with all the stuff on Capitol Hill and whatnot.
Yeah, and let's be honest, when you're dating, you have to feel safe. That is the number one feeling you need to feel if you're willing to open up to someone and share and get to know someone on a deeper level. And I'm feeling, I don't know about your Facebook feed, but are you even on Facebook?
Oh, of course
That's
I'm
for
on
the old
Facebook.
people?
No, I'm very much on Facebook.
I always wonder. It's like
I've heard that
just for old
the
people?
young folk are now only on the Instagram, but I'm a Facebook man, tried and true.
Good to
Yeah.
know. I'm on both, but
Yeah.
but Facebook is in my heart.
Yeah.
In a deep way. Anyways,
All our
People
data has
are-
been
people
sold.
are concerned.
Yeah.
about their data, their information being safe, feeling comfortable on Facebook. I'm seeing personally with my friends a mass exodus from Facebook. And I guess so it's a little bit tricky timing, and actually the CEO of Match, Mandy Ginsburg, kind of gave voice to this yesterday, and she's like, this is really interesting timing. She doesn't sound like that actually. she sounds like much more sophisticated and intelligent. But she's like, this is interesting timing that Facebook would release this feature at a time when people don't really trust them for keeping their data safe. And if you are wanting to say what you want in a relationship, be flirtatious, maybe even be sexual, like those messages, you don't want them floating out into, you don't want them going to Cambridge Analytica.
That is true, I'm sure. Yeah.
Right?
They will be, though. So
I'm a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
I feel like, here's the thing. I've been doing this for a long time, Producer Thomas. I feel like if Facebook had launched this feature 3 years ago,
it would have been huge.
It would have been huge. I think this is not the right time for them to launch this. I think people are just too
cautious.
They're too cautious about Facebook right now. I think it's a great idea, and people have been using Facebook as a de facto dating site for a long time. But it's a little bit too little too late, if you ask me. And my concern, even though Match's shares went down, like all of Tinder, all the dating sites and dating apps that would be in competition with this were hit pretty badly by the stock market yesterday when everybody was like, oh, that's a great idea. But I think it will correct a little bit when people realize, oh, no, wait, people don't go to Facebook to find a date. People go to Match to find a date.
And especially since, as we kind of mentioned earlier, like the younger people aren't really using it as more. I feel like that's still like the main dating app demographic. So it seems like it might be a sinking ship.
It's going to be a lot of old folks.
Yeah. And nothing wrong with that. But you do need the youth movement to have a successful app, I think. So.
Good point. Good point. While we're talking about apps, Stanford released a study on the lies people tell on dating apps.
I like this one.
Thomas.
This was good.
This is good because we've talked before about the lies that people tell on their dating profile. Like, I'm really 5'8", Producer Thomas.
I believe you.
Do you? Don't. Because I'm 5'8" in my dreams. 5 feet and proud. But people do lie about height, about weight, about age. I had that conversation with a client.
Oh.
You know when you lie on one thing, like one social media, and then it integrates with your dating app?
Right.
And she's quite frustrated because now she's like 10 years younger than she wants to be, but she feels trapped into it because she doesn't know how to change it on the app. Anyway,
that is unfortunate.
It's a slippery slope. You make one choice to tell a little fib, and then it just snowballs. Anyways, this looked at research from 200 users who use dating app and analyzed 3,000 messages, Producer Thomas, during the discovery phase, they call it, like when a match is made, but you're deciding whether
Testing
or not
the waters.
to move offline. Yeah, exactly. So overwhelmingly, they found that people are honest.
I know. I was kind of pleasantly surprised by that.
Were you?
Yeah.
I don't think.
You don't think they're being honest?
No, I don't think that didn't surprise me.
Oh, really?
I find that most, and I've said this for a long time, I think most people have positive intentions that are on dating apps. It's just maybe that 10% of weirdos that are ruining it for the rest of everybody. And then there's the good 40% of people that
white
are
lies
the
happening
white
here
lies.
and there.
That happens offline though too.
Yeah.
But they found that people were telling, I love this term, butler lies.
Yeah.
So these were sort of the lies of wanting to tactfully initiate or terminate conversation and to sort of keep your nose clean here. A lot of people lied about availability, like saying, oh, I can't go out tonight. Or some went all the way to say, like, I can't receive text messages now, my phone is broken, which I thought was really brave considering that your texts were being evaluated.
Right, yeah.
But they must not have known what they were evaluating for, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they paid them. But interestingly, when people said that, it was sometimes because they didn't feel comfortable. Like somebody was like, let's meet up tonight. And they're like, oh, I can't. I have to work, or I have to shampoo my hair, or, you know.
Just the classic, I'm tired is all you.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm so tired with six O's.
Uh-huh.
But the reality is it's kind of late, and I don't really want to be starting a date at 10 o'clock at night.
That's smart.
And I thought, wouldn't it be magical if people could apply that vulnerability principle and just
be
say,
honest. Well,
I don't really feel comfortable meeting you at 10 o'clock. How about we have a real date in the light of day?
yeah. What a perfect world it would be if everyone could be so honest
What a
and
beautiful
vulnerable.
world. I'll spare you the song.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
ultimately, the bottom line is that most people are telling the truth. And, there was another thing that I have to tell you about. Oh, gosh, now I can't find the name of it. But there's, the deception consensus effect. So if you are lying, friends, then you are more likely to believe that the person that you're talking to or your partner is also lying. And this, I think, is
That's
so
very
clutch
interesting. Yeah.
because so many people say to me, oh, everybody's lying on online dating. And I'm like, really? I don't know. I mean, yeah, people are kind of telling fibs like they do offline.
You spruce yourself up, I think, in terms of,
Yeah. But ultimately, I don't see the deception the way that some people are feeling it. So I want to ask you folks, if you're feeling the
you got
deception,
something to hide.
how much deceiving are you doing yourself? One couple that is really deceiving us, they're playing coy, they're playing hard to get with us because they're not giving us the information, producer Thomas, about what's happening in their love life, is Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom, aka Orlando Broom. She posted something on Monday.
The photo. Yeah.
Orlando Broom. I thought it was cute. So she said in an ET interview that she is spoken for. She is taken. And then they went to meet the Pope together.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. But hey, why not? What a
You don't
date.
just go
What
to-
an interesting date to meet the Pope.
That's a pretty serious date.
Yeah,
if you
that's
ask me.
yeah,
You don't go to meet the Pope just with any old guy.
that is true.
Why don't they just freaking say what's happening?
Well,
They're killing me here.
It seems that Orlando is more keen on like announcing it to the world than Katie is, because she's still playing it kind of close to the chest. But he seems like he's kind of like, "Yep, she's great."
I will say she has been burned before.
that is
like
true.
with the whole Russell Brand saga,
throwing it
that
way
was
back.
so out
Yeah.
in the public eye, all of it from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why she would want to be a little bit more reserved about it. But then they're saying it's because he's tired of being single and playing the field. And I'm just like, it's so much deeper than that. But he clearly admires her, has a lot of attraction towards her. And I would say I'm rooting for this couple. And I would just like for them to come clean about what's really happening.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to introduce my guest to you in just a little bit. But first, I have something to tell you. Hey, I have a secret for you. Everyone gets bored in the bedroom from time to time. And whether you're single or in a relationship, there's a way to spice things up at adamandeve.com. They have one of the largest catalogs of adult products around, from lingerie to things that go buzz. Adam and Eve has just what you need to revitalize your love life. And my friends at Adam and Eve have just the thing for you, a secret bonus. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you you're going to love it. And your partner will too, if you have one. Best of all, you can order online at adamandeve.com, and they will ship your items to you in discreet packaging, so the neighbors will be none the wiser. And if you use my promo code, shipping will be free. So go to adamandeve.com and enter the promo code GIFT21. You can get something for him, something for her, something for you both. And you will get a total of 10 free gifts if you use my code, plus free shipping. So don't be shy. Live out your fantasy at adamandeve.com using the offer code GIFT21 at checkout. You just heard about Adam and Eve, but if you have a product or a program or something that you think would be helpful for my audience to hear about, why not email me? We have lots of partnership opportunities. I'd love to chat with you and see what we can dream up together. You can email me, and don't be shy. Email me, Damona@DamonaHoffman.com. So now, you've been so patient in waiting for this esteemed guest to join me. She is online with us via Skype from Chicago, Pooja Mohindra. She's an actor, writer, and producer who's worked on so many shows, from Empire to CSI Miami. But she's really recognized for her work in digital media, and she is known for SHIT. I can't say it on the show, but you know what? If you can spell, you know what that is. SHIT, white girls say to Indian girls. to Ashton Kutcher, love Kimmy Patel. And now we're going to be talking about her new web series, Geeta's Guide to Moving On. Please give big smooches to Pooja Mohindra.
Hi, how are you?
Girl, I love this web series. This is coming to us on Open TV, and Open actually was the network that first sort of launched Issa Rae. You were in a writing workshop with her, and she's doing all right now, I guess.
Yeah, I love Issa. She's doing awesome.
So
She's
where'd
rocking it.
you get the idea? Did that come out of this workshop, or how did Geeta's Guide to Moving On get born?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Geeta's Guide to Moving On got born because I actually this is my second web series. My first web series was called Friendly Confines. We shot it in LA, and it kind of came to a natural conclusion. In that show, there's a character named Pooj, ironically enough. And
I don't know anyone with a name like that.
Exactly, right? So she just happens to be named Pooj. So she was going through this massive breakup, and it was a show about 3 brown girls living in a 2-bedroom apartment. Issa was really involved with mentoring us through that. We were in a group for creators of color called We Are the Web, where people were kind of supporting people of color telling their own stories, having brown people be the hero of their own stories. And basically, when the Friendly Confines came to an end, I said to her, why don't we take this character of Pooj, and I kind of want to go deeper into this breakup that she was going into, and it could be a spin-off show. So she said, well, I like the idea, but I think that you should write more about the parents. And that's how Geeta's Guide to Moving On first developed.
So as you're talking about the parents who are a big force in this web series, you yourself are Indian, yes? And you're, yes. Well, some people are listening on the podcast version, so
Yeah, no, that's
she's
very
gorgeous. She has dark hair. And your parents had an arranged marriage. And that has to be something like also my sister-in-law had that same experience. And her parents had an arranged marriage. And so I think when you don't go through that courtship process, that breakup process, it does reflect differently on what your expectations are for your children, correct?
Yeah, I think both my parents and I had no idea what to expect out of relationships because they had an arranged marriage. So they couldn't really help me navigate through dating. I needed you, Damona.
I was here all along. If we only knew.
I know, and there's so many. I feel like so the culture of it, I would say, being born in Chicago and being raised with these Indian immigrant parents, is you have these parents that really prize the institution of marriage, and yet dating is like a totally foreign concept. And not only that, it's my parents really didn't want to meet anyone until it was very serious. So I often felt I was very much navigating dating alone and not having the parents to see what is it like to fall in love and make a relationship work, because they were raised that they had to make it work, basically. And they do make it work, but it's a very different approach to falling in love because there's not the dating process to get to know someone. My parents got married after 3 days of meeting one another.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't really imagine that because we just grow up in a very different society. And I have read the statistic that arranged marriages are more successful. Since you have witnessed it firsthand, I'm curious if you have any idea why that is.
So you are absolutely right. In India, and if you want to look at the diaspora, there's only a 1% divorce rate. So 99% of marriages are working out, whether they're arranged or some people may have a love marriage, but many, 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 many are still arranged. And then obviously in America, it's 50% of a divorce rate. So basically, there's a line in my solo show, which was called The Great Dive, and that's kind of also the origins of Geeta's Guide to Moving On, where I borrowed it from a mentor. He's 100 years old and from Pune, India. And the line is, we don't fall in love, we rise in love. And as I share that show, a lot of people kind of asked me about that line. And I feel like that captures what it is with an arranged marriage. You go into it knowing that you fall in love later and that relationships take work, and everyone's basically signed up for the work of what a relationship is. So you don't have this expectation of the romance and fairy tale that I think we're often sold in the United States. For better or for worse. I mean, the fairy tale is beautiful, but it kind of, the idea of an arranged marriage is everyone knows that a relationship takes work.
Mm-hmm. You kind of gave me chills there, girl.
Yeah.
When you
It's
said,
deep.
yeah, we
We
rise in love.
That's good.
That's a quotable.
Fall in love, we rise in love. I never really latched onto that. And a lot of these ideas about kind of the way love is approached from the East and the West, I really didn't have a consciousness of, because I am from the East and the West. I am American, but I have these immigrant parents, in my home, which is our most intimate space, is totally Eastern, but I am totally Western. So what's been fascinating is, as I've shared the story, audiences have made me more aware of, like, oh, these are the differences. So they really help me see what's universal about the story, but they also really help me see what's culturally specific. And so that line was definitely audience feedback sharing. Actually, someone ended up making a large painting of that and showing me that. And I was like, so touched that line meant so much to them. But I really think it's a beautiful line that captures the possibility and potential for love if we all rise in love.
If only we all could rise in love. I do want to talk about cultural differences in a minute, but first I think it's important to just set up the premise of Geeta's Guide to Moving On, which, by the way, you can watch at home at Geeta's Guide to Moving On. All 13 episodes, right, are available now. So check them out. They're really funny and poignant and touching. No matter what your background, I think you can relate to it. And here's how I think a lot of people can relate, especially because Geeta has been dating this guy for 10 years. They are engaged. They're moving forward with their life. Finally, after 10 years, he proposes. And then in episode 1, I don't think I'm giving anything away. In episode 1, he breaks up with her and she has to move back in with her parents. And I think a lot of people can relate to those feelings of expectation and then loss when the relationship doesn't play out the way that we envisioned it in our minds.
Yeah, and I think also is one thing that I made a point of in the show is that you don't really get a concrete reason why. And I think that happens a lot, that not just in relationships, but in life, we often have a loss and we may not get a reason why, and how do we move on from that? So that was a very conscious decision, and sometimes it happens, you're seeing someone or you're dating someone and one person ends it, and they may give you a concrete reason, or maybe it's an ambiguous reason, but you still have to deal with it, especially if it's ambiguous. That whole "it's not me, it's you" kind of thing. It's kind of like such a generic reason that people can say, and we never really get the answer, and we still have to learn to move on from that. So that was why that was kind of important to me to highlight.
Yeah, and
past, when this happened, I spent a lot of time wallowing in the why, and it's just wasted time.
So wait, this happened to you then, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was drawn from personal experience, having gone through a breakup. I decided to move home with my parents for a short period of time, and wackiness ensued. And so that was kind of where the original idea was born. It's definitely a fictionalized story. If you watch the web series, those events didn't actually happen, but the idea of some of the themes that the show tackles are things that I felt like, things that I had learned in my personal experience, this journey of moving on, that I was like, I wish someone had told me these things. And hopefully it'll save other people some time and be more gentle with their heart to move on, be kind to themselves, and embrace happiness.
And in this series, it's not just her parents that are involved in the healing from the breakup. It's like the entire family and the aunties and the sister and the brother-in-law, like everyone is in her business. And I think even if you don't come from a large Indian family, you can relate to this feeling if you're single, and there's an age thing that comes up in one of the episodes as well. When you're single and you're growing older into an age when people think that you're supposed to be married, there's this pressure that comes from outside as well that makes you sort of second guess the decisions that you're making about dating and relationships.
Totally. That was the biggest thing that I learned about doing the show, because like I said at first, kind of the seed of the idea also started with this solo show. So I was doing this work live before it kind of adapted into a web series. And I kept thinking that these were things that were really specific to my culture, meaning Indian American culture has a lot of pressure on women to get married. I kind of joke that Indians are keeping the institution of marriage alive because it is just a huge part of the culture. And yet when I was sharing the show, I got endless feedback from women that this is not just your culture. We feel this pressure too. There's an enormous amount of pressure. And I don't know if people are talking about it, but when I shared the show, I did get that feedback. That seemed to be a universal thing of feeling like you need to achieve some relationship goals by a particular date or time or age.
And let's say maybe you're not of an Indian background, but you are interested in dating someone of a different culture. And this is a theme that I know you're exploring. And even the sister in this show is married to someone who's white, who's not Indian. How do you recommend bridging that cultural divide especially when you come from a culture that is so strong and rooted as the Indian culture? How can you bring someone else into that experience without it being awkward? Or does it have to be awkward?
Well, one thing I wanted to tell you too is that one thing that is a big difference, I wanted to share this with you, that one big difference in Indian American or Indian culture is that we really, if we're looking to meet someone, that's not something that we're shy about. Like, so for example, we're set up by a matchmaker, and that is how they connected, and 3 days later were married. And matchmakers are very, very common in India. Now, that has kind of been transferred here to America in an informal way, in the sense that when I was growing up, the aunties who are seen in the show will have very casual conversations. Oh, who's looking? Who would be good for this person's son or this person's daughter? That's what I love about what you do, because it's like you're here supporting people to find that. And what I see as a big cultural difference is that here, for example, I feel like my non-Indian friends or my non-brown friends who are looking for love are not really telling people, like, I want this in my life and I would love your help. And that is something that is so normalized in the Indian community that I think that can be borrowed, because if you are looking for love, well, look and tell people and get people to help you, because there are people like you and your friends and family who want to help support you with that. As far as the fish out of water thing, meaning having, someone step in his family, I've seen that with my own brother-in-law, and it takes an enormous, I have so much respect for him, because it is a huge thing to come into a different culture and just stay open and connect. And the thing that stays with me is that, so my mom had two sisters. There's three sisters. They all had arranged marriages. The youngest one has been the happiest. And she said that she was the happiest because she didn't go for looks. She was the one person that ended up marrying someone that, no judgment, but was balding and kind of a little bit more, had more weight to love. Let's just put it that way. Meaning that he wasn't, my mom was going for tall, fair, and handsome, and that he was shorter, balding, and like a larger guy. But he has been the best partner to her, and she is the happiest. So I always remember that, to go look beyond what people look like. Look at their heart. And so when you go back to the cultural question, it's like, ultimately, and I hope the show highlights this, we are all human. Loss is inevitable, and loss is the most human experience to go through, and love is also the most human experience to go through, and that these things transcend culture. Right. So ultimately, I feel like that, I hope that that's a part of something that people will take away from them.
Well, I've taken a lot from this interview, and there's so much wisdom that you've shared just through your life experience and what you've been through to be able to create and star in a series as great as Geeta's Guide to Moving On. So you can find that online at Geeta's, Geetas, Guide to Moving On.com. And Pooja, I'd love to get your insight since you are so wise and you're.
I have so much to learn from you. I'm not wise. I'm learning from you.
Well,
and
girl, you dropped some knowledge. So let me give credit where credit is due, because we have questions from our listeners, and we have some really juicy ones that I'm excited to share in today's Technically Dating.
Love it.
Technically Dating.
And y'all know this segment is brought to us in partnership with TechSpert and the TechSpert app, which you can download on the App Store for free, and you can get crowdsourced advice immediately, and the best and the brightest and the most thought-provoking questions will end up on Dates and Mates. So today we have a question, Pooja, from a young female. She says, I've been dating my boyfriend for a little over a month, and he just told me that his ex messaged him after 5 years and told him that they have a daughter together. Now she says, I don't know how I feel about it or what to say to give him comfort. He's going to do a DNA test, but this little girl looks just like him. Oh my goodness. What does someone do if someone that they've fallen in love with, who had one story and one history, suddenly has their history changed and now possibly may have a daughter who needs to be incorporated into the relationship?
Wow, life is complicated, isn't it?
It is. I told you that it was going to be easy questions, but I guess I lied a little bit. But you can handle it, girl. What do you think?
My thing is that life is complicated, right? So part of, for example, it's the theme of the show, is it embracing the imperfectness of life, the beauty and the messiness of life. And so I think my question is, did he know? If it were me, I would say ask Damona too. But
Thank you.
If I were in her shoes, the first thing I would find out is, did he know? Was he hiding it? It's very easy for me to advocate for her because I don't know him. I know her through you and through the show. So I'm going to advocate for her. And in doing that, I would say, is he telling the truth that he just found out? Because I think when looking at someone we were speaking earlier about, looking past looks and the superficial and getting to the character and the heart of a person, that's what I want to know. Was this person hiding more than, okay, he has a child. A lot of people move on to another relationship where there's a child in the picture or whatever it may be. But I think the fact is, did he disclose that, or did he hide that from you?
And sometimes you have to roll with the punches too. Like, let's assume that he is telling the truth. Obviously, this is not a situation that he was anticipating, and sometimes a relationship evolves. Like, I'm not going to get into all the details, but in my first year of marriage, I almost had to take in a family member, a family member's children. Because she was not capable of taking care of her kids at that moment. And I was like, okay, I might have to step up. And it was a year into my marriage, less than a year. And my husband was like, okay, if we need to do this, we got to do this. And that was not something that I could have seen coming in any way. But his willingness to go there and to support not only me, but also my family was one of the things that I think made me fall deeper in love with him. So I don't know, right? I finally found a story I've never shared on this show.
Yeah, it's a new one.
Amazing. After 5 years, I feel like I'm just constantly repeating myself. But no, I'm not. It's always fresh and new here on Dates and Mates. But so I would say to her that the question is really, is she in for this relationship? Because if you're in, you got to be ready to roll with the punches. And this is possibly one of the punches. And the thing to remember is it does not change his love for you. Him having to incorporate another person and share his love with his daughter does not affect his relationship with you. You have to the relationship will have to grow and rise, as you said, and make space for the love of this little girl if he is the father. That's what I say.
And these things can bring you together. These things can draw you closer together, and so it can be seen as an opportunity. I mean, if absolutely, and also it's a test of you. You hit the nail on the head. Your willingness to support him at this time, and travel this journey together is also very revealing of how strongly you feel about him. So it's an opportunity.
I like that. I see it as an opportunity as well. Okay, there's an opportunity that is coming up for one of our listeners. She's female. She's 18. She says, how do I play hard to get with my neighbor? He lives in the apartment next door and he wants to come over, but I haven't had sex with him and we just met and I don't want to rush into sex yet. Pooja, have you ever dealt with dating a neighbor situation? And whether or not you have, can you give some guidance to this young lady who is hitting it off with somebody who lives very, very close, maybe too close for comfort?
Well, you're talking to a brown girl that is a prude, total prudish person. So I subscribe to Steve Harvey's thoughts of 90-day rule before you get the cake.
No, really? Wow. Really? You are a prude.
Yeah.
My favorite kind of prude, though.
Don't invite him over. Have him take you out somewhere and have the opportunity to get to know one another. It's summer. It's almost summer now. I mean, there's no reason to be inside. And I would say hold off on the whole. I mean, later it'll be very convenient that you guys are neighbors. But now take the time to enjoy getting to know each other outside of the home.
See, I like to simultaneously play out all possible outcomes. It's like sort of that theory of the quantum physics theory,
wow.
right? Quantum physics of dating.
Yeah.
All right, not to get too heady, but it could be very convenient.
I want to hear what you think.
It could be very convenient that he could be that close, or it could be very inconvenient because just imagine if it doesn't work out, then you're having to see him come and go with his other dates, and you might run into him, and it might be awkward. Now, I'm not saying don't pursue it for that reason. I'm all for, see what's really there. But, yeah, if you started out in your apartment, there's only one place you're going, and that's to the bedroom, right? I mean, really. Yeah, I'm with you, Pooja. See, you are so wise.
Guys think they need to earn it.
Make him earn it. 90
are,
days is a little bit much, though.
Yeah, you don't have to do
My
that.
loins hurt over that.
But I'm saying that maybe I'm traditional, but this is definitely going to be my Eastern side. Is just that I feel like a guy, you deserve to be taken out. And I'm not saying I'm very big on going Dutch, so I don't like owing people anything, especially on the first date. But I think that let him treat you somewhere and take you out. Even if you guys go Dutch, make him work a little bit. Make him find a place to take you so that you have some time to get to know one another. It's very easy for him to just come over. Make him commute.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Producer Thomas is the lone guy in this room. Mm-hmm. Do you agree? What do you think when you hear that, make a guy work for it? I know you're not working for it much now.
Well, you see, in 2018, we have to be sex positive. So if you want to, have sex on the first date, let it happen.
You don't have to be anything. You don't have to be sex positive.
Well, it's good to,
You have to be vulnerable and authentic.
Oh, there we go.
That's all you have to be.
I love that.
Yeah. But no, I think in general, I personally would, like to put in a few dates before perhaps taking it to that level. I think that it's good to at least get one date on the book to make sure you have a emotional or a connection of some sort.
I think that anticipation is fun. And once you cross that line, you can't go back. So why rush into it? I'm with you. Okay, I have another doozy for you.
He's crazy.
What'd you say?
Safety first. You don't know if he's crazy. So what, he lives in your building. You're bringing him into your home, your most private space. So safety first. I
like a cautious lady. Mm-hmm. I like how you roll, Pooja. So this one is a little bit of a doozy. So you're sitting down. Okay, let's go. She's a female. She's 20. She says, I am bi, and I have been dating my boyfriend for over 2 years now. But I've been fantasizing about being with a girl again. I miss the emotional connection, and I don't seem to connect with my boyfriend anymore. I don't know how to make these feelings go away or how to bring it up to my boyfriend. I think there's a compound issue happening with the issue with the boyfriend and the feelings for females that she's melding into one, but I think they're two separate issues. What do you say?
Yeah, I think it doesn't really matter if the other person that you're thinking about is a woman or I don't think their sexuality or gender matter. It's what sounds like is that you're thinking about someone else.
Mm-hmm. But it's like this idea that she's connecting the emotional intimacy to a woman because that's what she's experienced before in same-sex relationships. But men are capable of being emotional, right, Producer Thomas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says with no emotion at all.
Yeah, very straight-faced. No, I'm in touch with my emotions, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm vulnerable.
So that to me says that this relationship hasn't gone deep enough for you to get that need met in the relationship. So my feeling is, you want to address that first and see if you can find that level of intimacy, because I think that's what when you say you're not feeling connected to him, you're not getting your need for emotional intimacy met. And see, like, people are so quick these days to throw the baby out with the bathwater. That was not a great analogy for this particular situation. But you get the point.
Yeah.
God, did people really throw the babies out with the bathwater?
Maybe that's a rabbit hole. I don't know if we have time to go down.
Thanks, Producer Thomas.
What do you think of the time of the 2 years? I'm curious about your opinion on that. Is 2 years of time where you feel like you should know, okay, this is their potential for emotional connection? Maybe
she's 20. I mean, she's young. So sometimes relationships at that period of your life aren't as deep as they could be, as deep as they will rise to be as you are rising in love. So I would say that may be a symptom of the space that she and her boyfriend are in their life path. But you got to explore it before you don't just screw it up. Like, that's what so many people do. They're like, oh, I'm scared. This is like too intense and I don't really want to deal with what's wrong. So I'll just leave this one and I'll fix it by just having sex with a woman or just leaving the relationship, and then I'll start over with someone else. And it's like, wait. Let's try and get to the root of what is going on. That's why I actually think with the arranged marriage culture, it is different because you're already married. Like, you're in it, so you have a vested interest in doing whatever you can to work it out. Versus in this situation, she can just walk away and be like, well, 2 years. Okay, bye. And that doesn't solve anything.
You were even giving this explanation. I thought, oh my God, you're sounding this is exactly the thought that goes behind this Eastern idea of making it work. I was thinking, wow, she sounds so Indian right now, because that's the approach to it, is make it work. And it's not saying that people don't eventually fall in love. They fall in love after they get married. So basically, absolutely, I love that you're encouraging people to work on things, because people do abandon relationships so quickly, and then they say, oh, I'm not meeting anyone and there's nothing out there. Well, exactly what you said. Every relationship is going to take work.
Yeah, and we're in a disposable society here where it's everything like, oh, this is broken. Let me just throw that back in and get another. And we don't have to do that in relationships, and we shouldn't when we're dealing with real people and their feelings.
Why do people do this with relationships, and not, like, with relationships in particular, right? When you have a job and you have challenges in the job, people don't just quit and peace out on their job. But when it comes to dating, people want to peace out.
I did. Don't peace out on me, though, Producer Thomas. So, but before we have to go, I would love to share any parting thoughts from you and about Geeta's Guide to Moving On. What are you hoping that people will take away from this web series when they check it out at geetasguidetomovingon.com?
To embrace happiness. And I would say, to quote another quote from my mentor who had the Rise in Love quote, he says, the secret to happiness is not to have what you want, but to want what you have. And I think when I look at the story of Geeta's Guide to Moving On, it's someone that wanted to have her happily ever after. And when she doesn't get it, doesn't know what to do. She's miserable. She's lost. And her journey is part of moving on is her journey to discover, how do you embrace happiness? How do you fall in love with your life? And so I think that would be the takeaway, is to embrace happiness with life as it is in its imperfect messiness. There's so much beauty in it. I hope people will walk away with that.
That's a great message. Fall in love with your life, everybody, and fall in love with Geeta's Guide to Moving On at geetasguidetomovingon.com. Thank you so much, Pooja Mohindra, for joining us on Dates and Mates.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for listening to the show. You can leave us a voicemail. You can, if you have a question, you can leave us a voicemail at 424-246-6255. Let us know what's on your mind, or you can email me anytime, Damona@DamonaHoffman.com. Of course, I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook with the old people, and Twitter at Damona Hoffman. And don't be shy. Use that little Adam and Eve magic that I told you about earlier. You can get your free gift at adamandeve.com using the offer code GIFT21, and you can download the Techspert app on the App Store and post some questions and get some advice of your own. We will see you again next week, where the topic will be hot and heavy. We'll be discussing sexual health next week. Until then.